Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the stars streak past through the main screen. After 3 years of traveling through space, they were finally close to their destination. The Kepler 442 system lay ahead, ready to become humanity's first colony beyond Earth's solar system. "Captain, we're dropping out of faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds," announced Lisa Chang from her position at the engineering station. She had been working non-stop for the past week, making sure all systems were ready for their arrival. Jake nodded and pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to reach our new home. Prepare for normal space." The ship shuddered slightly as it slowed down from incredible speeds. Outside the windows, the stars stopped moving and became steady points of light. In the distance, a yellow sun very much like Earth's sun glowed warmly. 3 planets orbited around it, and the middle one looked perfect for human life. "Sensors are picking up something unusual," said Ryan Brooks from his security station. The tall man frowned at his readings. "There are ships in the system, Captain. Lots of them." Jake felt his stomach tighten. They had traveled so far and used so many resources to get here. The thought of finding other intelligent life was both exciting and terrifying. "Can you tell what kind of ships?" "They're big," Ryan replied. "Much bigger than ours, and they're moving toward us fast." Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her medical station. "Are they hostile?" Before anyone could answer, the main screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing space, it now showed the inside of another ship's bridge. The beings standing there were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They stood 7 feet tall with gray skin that looked like natural armor. Their eyes were large and black, and they had no hair anywhere on their bodies. The largest of these aliens stepped forward and spoke in perfect English, though his voice was deep and threatening. "I am War Commander Thek Volume of the Zephyrian Collective. You have entered our territory without permission. This is a serious crime." Jake straightened his uniform and stepped toward the screen. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth. Ship Defiance. We didn't know this system belonged to anyone. We came here to build a peaceful colony." Thek Volume laughed, but it was not a pleasant sound. "Peaceful? You humans think you can just take what you want. This system has belonged to the Zephyrian Collective for over 1,000 years. We have fought many wars to keep it safe." "We're not here to fight," Jake said calmly. "We're explorers and colonists. We just want to find a new home for our people." "Then you will serve us," Thek Volume declared. "The Zephyrian Collective has conquered 47 different species. All of them now serve us as workers and soldiers. You will do the same, or you will die." The bridge of the Defiance became very quiet. Jake could feel his crew looking at him, waiting for his response. He had trained for many situations, but this was not one of them. "What exactly are you demanding?" Jake asked. "Simple," Thek Volume replied. "You will land on the second planet. Build factories for us. You will give us all your technology. Your strongest people will join our army. Your smartest people will work in our laboratories. In return, we will let you live." Lisa Chang whispered to Jake, "Captain, we have 75,000 people on this ship. We can't just surrender them to slavery." Jake nodded slightly, then spoke to Thek Volume again. "And if we refuse?" "Then we destroy your ship and everyone on it," the alien commander said without any emotion. "We have done this many times before. Most species choose to live as our servants rather than die as our enemies," Jake thought quickly. The Defiance was a colony ship, not a warship. They had some defensive weapons, but nothing that could fight an entire fleet. However, he had learned something important during his years in space. Sometimes the best strategy was to buy time. "War Commander Thek Volume," Jake said formally, "I have a different proposal." The alien leader's eyes narrowed. "You are in no position to make proposals, human." "Maybe not," Jake admitted. "But hear me out. You say you've conquered 47 species. That means you're warriors who value strength and honor." "Of course we are," Thek Volume said proudly. "The Zephyrian Collective is the strongest force in this part of the galaxy." "Then prove it," Jake challenged. "Don't just destroy us with superior numbers." Show us that you're truly superior in every way. Zek Volume seemed interested despite himself. What do you mean? I propose 3 challenges, Jake said. First, single combat between our best fighter and yours. Second, a test of technology and science. Third, a battle between our fleets using equal numbers of ships. The alien commander laughed again. You want to fight us? Your ship is tiny compared to ours. Your people look weak and soft. If we're so weak, then you have nothing to fear, Jake replied. When you win all 3 challenges, you'll have proven beyond any doubt that humans should serve the Zephyrian Collective. But you'll have done it with honor, not just overwhelming force. Zek Volume was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see other aliens in the background talking among themselves. Finally, the war commander spoke again. And if you somehow win these challenges, then you leave us alone to build our colony in peace, Jake said. No slavery, no conquest, no destruction. We go our separate ways. Impossible, Zek Volume said. No species has ever defeated the Zephyrian Collective in combat. No species has ever created technology superior to ours. No species has ever outfought our battle fleets. Then you have nothing to lose, Jake pointed out. The alien leader thought about this. Jake could see that his pride was getting involved. The idea of proving Zephyrian's superiority in front of his own people was very appealing. Very well, Zek Volume finally said. We accept your foolish challenge. But when we win, your people will serve us for 100 years instead of just being workers. They will be examples to other species of what happens when you challenge the Zephyrian Collective. Jake felt a chill run down his spine, but he kept his face calm. And if we win? You won't, Zek Volume said confidently. But if you do, we will. Leave your system and never return? We will even tell other species to avoid this place. Agreed, Jake said. When do we start? Tomorrow, Zek Volume replied. We will meet at the large asteroid near the 4th planet. Come alone or with a small group. We will witness your defeat personally. The communication ended and the screen went black. The bridge was silent for several seconds. Captain, Ryan said quietly, what have we gotten ourselves into? Jake turned to face his crew. We've bought ourselves time and a chance. That's more than we had 5 minutes ago. But how can we possibly win? Dr. Williams asked. They're right about their advantages. They have bigger ships, more advanced weapons, and they've been fighting wars for centuries. Maybe, Jake said. But they've also been winning the same way for centuries. They use fear and overwhelming force. They've never faced opponents who fight differently, Lisa Chong nodded slowly. You think we can surprise them? I think we can do something they won't expect, Jake replied. They see us as weak because we're smaller and less aggressive. But they don't understand that humans have our own strengths. What kind of strengths? Ryan asked. Jake smiled for the first time since the aliens had appeared. We're going to show them what happens when you challenge a species that never knows when to give up. The asteroid was huge, almost like a small moon floating in the darkness of space. It had been hollowed out in the center to create a natural arena. Bright lights from both human and Zephyrian ships lit up the rocky surface, making it look like an ancient gladiator ring. Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the fighting area, watching as his chosen warrior prepared for battle. Alex Turner was not the biggest man on the ship, but he was certainly the most skilled fighter. He had trained in many different fighting styles on Earth and had never lost a match during his military service. Are you ready for this? Jake asked. Quietly, Alex stretched his arms and rolled his shoulders. As ready as I can be, Captain. I've studied the videos of Zephyrian combat we recorded yesterday. They're strong and fast, but they fight in predictable patterns. Remember, Jake said, you don't have to kill him. You just have to make him give up. I understand, Alex replied, but I'm not sure he'll make it easy. Across the arena, the Zephyrian champion was preparing as well. Crystal was enormous, even by Zephyrian standards. His natural armor plates gleamed under the lights, and his razor-sharp claws looked like they could cut through metal. He had fought over 200 battles and had never been defeated. War Commander Thek Volume stood with his officers, watching the preparations with confidence. "This will be over quickly," he said to his second-in-command. "Crystal will crush this small human in minutes." "Should we make it more interesting?" asked the other officer. "Perhaps allow weapons?" "No," Thek Volume replied. "Hand-to-hand combat. Only, we want to prove that even our weakest advantage is enough to defeat their strongest warrior." The rules were simple. Both fighters would enter the arena with no weapons and no armor. They would fight until one of them surrendered or could no longer continue. There would be no time limit and no outside help. Alex walked to the center of the arena. He wore simple exercise clothes and lightweight boots. Compared to his opponent, he looked like a child preparing to fight a giant. Crystal approached from the other side, his heavy footsteps echoing off the asteroid walls. When he reached the center, he looked down at Alex with what might have been amusement. "You're very small," Crystal said in accented English. "I will try to end this quickly so you do not suffer too much." "Thanks for the consideration," Alex replied calmly. "I'll try to make it interesting for you." The Zephyrian champion laughed. "Interesting? You cannot even reach my head with your tiny arms." A Zephyrian officer acting as referee raised his hand. "The combat will begin when I lower my arm." "Fight." "With honor." Alex took a deep breath and got into a ready position. He had studied martial arts for 15 years, but he had never faced anything like this. The key would be to stay calm and use his opponent's size against him. The referee's arm came down. Crystal immediately charged forward, intending to end the fight with one powerful blow. His clawed hand swept through the air where Alex had been standing, but the human was no longer there. Alex had rolled to the side and was now behind the big alien, before Crystal could turn around. Alex jumped up and grabbed him around the neck. The Zephyrian tried to shake him off, but Alex held on tight and used his opponent's own movement to throw him off balance. Crystal stumbled but did not fall. He reached back with both hands, trying to grab Alex, but the human dropped down and swept his legs. This time, the big alien did fall, crashing to the rocky ground with a loud thud. The watching Zephyrians gasped in surprise. No one had ever knocked down Crystal before. The champion got back to his feet quickly, his black eyes now showing anger instead of amusement. "You are faster than I expected, human. But speed will not save you from my strength." He attacked again, this time more carefully. His claws moved in precise patterns, trying to corner Alex and force him into a position where he could not escape. For several minutes, Alex dodged and weaved, avoiding the deadly strikes by inches, but Alex was not just running away. He was learning. Every time Crystal attacked, Alex observed his patterns and timing. Zephyrians were powerful fighters, but they had been using the same techniques for centuries. They did not adapt quickly to new situations. When Crystal made a particularly aggressive lunge, Alex stepped aside and grabbed the alien's extended arm. Using a judo throw he had learned years ago, Alex used Crystal's own momentum to flip him over his shoulder. The big alien crashed to the ground again. This time, landing hard on his back, Alex immediately moved to pin him down, but Crystal's strength was too great. With a roar of fury, he threw Alex off and jumped back to his feet. "Impossible!" That volume shouted from the sidelines. "How is this small human still fighting?" "Jake?" Morrison smiled but said nothing. He had chosen Alex not because he was the strongest human, but because he was the smartest fighter. Alex understood something that the Zephyrians did not. In combat, the mind was more important than the body. The fight continued for over an hour. Crystal's attacks became more desperate and less controlled. He had expected to win quickly, and the long battle was wearing him down. His heavy armor plates, which were supposed to protect him, were now making him slower and more tired. Alex, meanwhile, was getting more confident. He had figured out his opponent's weaknesses and was starting to exploit them. Every time Crystal attacked high, Alex went low. When the alien tried to use his claws, Alex got in close where the long weapons were useless. The turning point came when Crystal made a mistake. Frustrated by his inability to land a solid hit, he put all his strength into one massive swing. Alex ducked under the attack and delivered a series of quick punches to the alien's ribs, right where his armor plates had gaps. Crickstyle staggered backward, gasping for breath. The human strikes had been perfectly placed to cause maximum damage, without being fatal. For the first time in his life, the great champion was truly hurt. Alex pressed his advantage. He grabbed Crickstall's arm and twisted it behind his back, then wrapped his other arm around the alien's neck in a chokehold. It was a technique that used leverage instead of strength, making it impossible for Crickstall to escape even with his superior power. Submit, Alex said quietly. You fought well, but this is over. Crickstall struggled for several more seconds, but the chokehold was cutting off his air supply. Finally, with great difficulty, he tapped Alex's arm 3 times with his free hand. The human released him immediately and stepped back. The arena was completely silent. Every Zephyrian watching could not believe what they had just seen. Their greatest champion had been defeated by a creature half his size. The referee, still in shock, raised his voice. The human warrior is victorious. Alex walked over to where Crickstall was sitting on the ground, catching his breath. He extended his hand to help the alien stand up. You are very strong, Alex said respectfully. I have never fought anyone like you. Crickstall looked at the offered hand for a moment, then took it and allowed Alex to help him to his feet. How? He asked simply. Different training, Alex replied. On Earth, we learn to fight many different ways. When one technique doesn't work, we try another. War Commander Thek Volume was furious. This changes nothing, he shouted. One lucky victory does not make your species superior to ours. Jake Morrison looked across the arena at the alien leader. No, he agreed. But it proves that we're not as weak as you thought we were. The next challenge will be different, Thek Volume said angrily. We will show you what real superiority looks like. As the 2 groups prepared to return to their ships, Alex walked over to his captain. How did I do? Jake clapped him on the shoulder. You did exactly what we needed. You showed them that humans don't give up, even when the odds are against us. What happens next? Next, we prove that being smart is just as important as being strong, Jake replied. And I think our science team is going to surprise them even more than you did. The second challenge took place in open space, halfway between the human and Zephyrian fleets. Both sides had agreed to demonstrate their most advanced technology, and the winner would be decided by which side could prove their superiority in science and engineering. Dr. Elena Rodriguez floated in her spacesuit near a small asteroid that would serve as the testing ground. She was the chief scientist aboard the USS Defiance, and she had spent the last day preparing for this moment. In her hands, she held a device that looked no bigger than an old Earth smartphone. Across from her, a massive Zephyrian construct hung in space like a mechanical monster. The weapon was over 50 feet long and covered in glowing energy conduits. It hummed with barely contained power that made the nearby space shimmer with heat. War. Commander Thekval's voice came through the communication system. Behold the storm. Bringer, the ultimate weapon of the Zephyrian Collective. It can destroy an entire asteroid in one blast. Our scientists have spent 300 years perfecting this technology. Captain Jake Morrison responded from the bridge of the Defiance. Very impressive, Dr. Rodriguez. Are you ready to show them what human science can do? Elena smiled inside her helmet. Ready as I'll ever be, Captain. Beginning demonstration now. She activated the small device in her hands. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Zephyrians watching from their ships began to laugh and make jokes about human technology being so weak that it was invisible. Is that it? The Thek Volume asked mockingly. A tiny box that does nothing? This is your most advanced technology? Actually, Elena said calmly, it's a molecular fabricator combined with an artificial intelligence system. It's just getting started. As she spoke, tiny sparks of light began to appear around the test asteroid. The sparks multiplied quickly, and soon there were thousands of them swarming around the rocky surface. Within minutes, the swarm had grown so large that it looked like a glowing cloud. What are those things? Asked a Zephyrian officer. Construction nanobots, Elena explained. Each one is smaller than a grain of sand, but they can work together to build almost anything. The AI system tells them what to do, and they follow the instructions perfectly. The nanobots were already beginning to change the asteroid. They dug into the surface and started building structures at incredible speed. Metal frameworks appeared, followed by complex machinery and energy systems. The whole process looked like watching a city being built in fast motion. "Impressive light show," HFY said, though he sounded less confident than before. "But can your tiny machines withstand the power of our greatest weapon?" "That's exactly what we're about to find out," Elena replied. "The nanobots are building a complete defense system. It should be ready in about 10 more minutes." The Zephyrians watched in growing amazement as the asteroid transformed before their eyes. What had been a simple rock was now covered in a network of energy shields, sensor arrays, and defensive weapons. The construction was so advanced that it looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. "Defense grid is complete," Elena announced. "The system includes adaptive shielding, automated repair functions, and energy absorption matrices. It's designed to protect against any kind of attack." HFY was no longer laughing. "We shall see about that. Stormbringer, prepare to fire." The massive Zephyrian weapon began to charge up, its energy conduits glowing brighter and brighter. Space around it started to warp from the incredible power building up inside the device. When it was fully charged, it looked like a miniature star floating in the darkness. "Fire!" HFY commanded. A beam of pure energy shot out from the storm bringer, bright enough to hurt the eyes even through protective filters. The beam was so powerful that it could have destroyed a battleship in seconds. It struck the asteroid's defense grid with the force of a nuclear explosion, but instead of destroying the asteroid, something unexpected happened. The energy shields absorbed the massive blast and began to glow with the same power. The beam continued to pour into the defense grid, but instead of breaking through, it was being captured and stored. "Impossible!" HFY shouted. "Nothing can withstand the Stormbringer." Elena watched her instruments carefully. "The nanobots are converting your weapon's energy into power for their own systems. The more you shoot at them, the stronger they become." The Zephyrian weapon fired for a full minute, pouring enough energy into the defense grid to power a small city. When it finally stopped, the asteroid was glowing like a small sun from all the absorbed power. "Now watch this," Elena said. The defense grid began to release swarms of even smaller nanobots, so tiny they were almost invisible. These new machines flew through space toward the Stormbringer, moving too fast and too small for the Zephyrian sensors to track them properly. "What are you doing?" HFY demanded. "Nothing harmful," Elena assured him. "The nanobots are just going to disable your weapon. They won't hurt anyone." The microscopic machines reached the Stormbringer and began to work. They found their way into the weapon's energy conduits and control systems, not destroying anything but simply disconnecting key components. Within minutes, the great weapon began to power down. "Our systems are failing," a Zephyrian technician reported in panic. "The weapon is shutting down, but we cannot find the cause." "The nanobots are incredibly small," Elena explained. "They can get inside any machine and modify it without causing damage. Think of it as very precise surgery instead of destruction." The Stormbringer, which had been glowing with deadly energy just moments before, was now completely dark and powerless. The Zephyrians frantically tried to restart it, but their controls no longer responded. "You have sabotaged our weapon," HFY accused angrily. "No," Elena said patiently. "I've just shown you the difference between our approaches to technology. Your weapon is very powerful, but it only does one thing: it destroys. My nanobots are much smaller and weaker individually, but they can adapt to any situation and work together to solve problems." She activated her device again, and the nanobots that had disabled the Stormbringer began to return to her position. "If you want, I can have them repair your weapon. They disconnected the same components they can reconnect." The Zephyrians stared at her in disbelief. "You would fix our weapon after defeating it?" "Of course," Elena replied. "The point wasn't to destroy your technology. It was to show you that there are different ways to solve problems. Your weapon is designed to overpower enemies. My nanobots are designed to adapt and overcome challenges without unnecessary destruction. War Commander Thek Volume was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Your technology is different from anything we have encountered. Different isn't necessarily better, Elena said. It's just different. Your weapon is incredibly powerful and would be very effective against most enemies, but it's not designed to handle something that can adapt to its attack. And your nanobots? They're designed to work together and find solutions to problems. They're not really weapons at all. They're tools that can be used for construction, repair, exploration, or defense, depending on what's needed. Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system. Dr. Rodriguez, excellent work. War Commander Thek Volume, I believe that concludes the second challenge. Thek Volume seemed to be struggling with what he had just witnessed. Your scientist has proven that human technology is capable of surprising us, but this does not change the final outcome. We still have the third challenge, and in fleet combat, the Zephyrian Collective has never been defeated. We'll see about that, Jake replied. But first, Dr. Rodriguez, please have your nanobots repair the Stormbringer. There's no reason to leave it damaged. Elena nodded and sent the command to her nanobots. Within minutes, the great Zephyrian weapon was glowing with power again, fully restored to its original condition. Why did you do that? Thek Volume asked, genuinely puzzled. Because we're not trying to destroy you, Jake answered. We're trying to prove that we deserve to exist as equals, not enemies. As both sides prepared to return to their ships for the final challenge, Elena packed away her device. She had shown the Zephyrians that human technology was not about building bigger weapons, but about creating smarter solutions. Now it was time to see if that lesson would make any difference in the coming battle. The asteroid field around the fourth planet was the perfect place for a space battle. Huge rocks floated everywhere, some as small as cars and others as big as buildings. The space between them was filled with dust and smaller debris that would make sensors work poorly and create hiding places for clever fighters. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, looking at the tactical display. The odds were not good. The humans had only 3 ships, his own Defiance, Captain Ben Parker's science vessel Discovery, and Captain Sam Foster's support ship Endeavor. Against them, War Commander Thek Volume had brought 12 massive warships, each one bigger and more heavily armed than all 3 human ships combined. Captain, said Ryan Brooks from his security station, the Zephyrian fleet is taking position. They're forming their standard attack formation, Jake nodded. He had spent the last day studying every piece of information they had about Zephyrian battle tactics. The aliens were excellent fighters, but they always used the same strategies. They believed in honor, direct combat, and overwhelming firepower. It had worked for them for over 1,000 years. Lisa, how are our systems? Jake asked. All systems are ready, Lisa Chang replied from the engineering station. I've made some modifications to our engines and weapons based on Dr. Rodriguez's nanobots. We should be able to do a few things that might surprise them. Dr. Williams, are the medical bays prepared? Kate Williams looked up from her station. Ready for casualties, Captain. I've also prepared emergency supplies in case we need to help injured Zephyrians. Jake raised an eyebrow. You're planning to treat enemy wounded? If necessary, Kate replied firmly. They're still living beings, and it's the right thing to do. The communication system crackled to life. Human vessels, came Thek Vol's voice. This is your final chance to surrender. You cannot possibly defeat 12 Zephyrian warships with your tiny fleet. We appreciate the offer, Jake responded, but we're going to see this through to the end. So be it, Thek Volume said. When this battle is over, remember that we gave you the choice to live as our servants. Now you have chosen to die as our enemies. The communication ended and Jake turned to his crew. All right, everyone. We knew this moment would come. We can't win this fight by trying to be stronger than they are. We have to be smarter. What's the plan, Captain? Then Parker asked over the ship-to-ship communication from the Discovery. "We're going to use their own tactics against them," Jake explained. "The Zephyrians expect us to either run away in fear or charge at them in a hopeless attack. Instead, we're going to make them think we're doing one thing while we actually do something else." "Deception?" Sam Foster asked from the Endeavor. "More than that," Jake replied. "We're going to use their honor against them. Zephyrians value brave combat above everything else. They can't resist the chance to prove their superiority in a fair fight." The battle began with the Zephyrian ships advancing in a perfect formation. Their weapons were already charging and their shields were at maximum power. They moved slowly and carefully like hunters stalking prey. "All ships," Jake ordered, "begin retreat pattern Alpha. Make it look like we're panicking." The 3 human ships turned away from the Zephyrian fleet and began to fly deeper into the asteroid field. Their movements looked clumsy and desperate, as if they were trying to escape but didn't know where to go. "They're running," laughed a Zephyrian officer over the open communication channel. "Just like all the other species we've conquered." Deck Volume was more cautious. "Maintain formation. Do not let them escape. We will pursue them slowly and destroy them when they can run no further." But Jake was counting on exactly that response. The human ships continued their apparent retreat, leading the Zephyrians deeper into the most dangerous part of the asteroid field. Here, the rocks were so thick that large ships could barely maneuver, and sensor readings became almost useless. "Now," Jake whispered to his crew, "activate the surprises." Lisa Chang pressed several buttons on her console. All around the asteroid field, small devices that had been placed during the previous day began to activate. They were mines, but not the kind that exploded. Instead, they released clouds of metallic dust that made sensors even more confused and created false readings on Zephyrian instruments. "Sir, our sensors are showing strange readings," a Zephyrian technician reported. "There appear to be ships everywhere, but we cannot tell which ones are real." "It doesn't matter," Deck Volume replied. "Continue the pursuit. They cannot hide from us forever." But the humans weren't trying to hide. They were setting a trap. Captain Parker's science vessel Discovery had the most advanced sensors in the human fleet. Even in the confusion of the asteroid field, it could track the exact position of every Zephyrian ship. Parker shared this information with the other 2 captains, giving the humans a huge advantage. "Phase 2, Jake announced. "Begin harassment attacks." The 3 human ships split up and began darting between the asteroids, using the rocks as cover. They would appear just long enough to fire a few shots at the Zephyrian formation, then disappear again before the aliens could respond effectively. The attacks weren't meant to cause serious damage. Instead, they were designed to frustrate the Zephyrians and make them angry. Each small strike was perfectly timed to hit when the alien ships couldn't shoot back. "Cowards!" Deck Volume shouted in rage. "Face us in honorable combat." "We are fighting." "You," Jake replied over the communication system. "Just not the way you expected." The harassment continued for over an hour. The Zephyrian formation began to break apart as individual captains tried to chase the elusive human ships. This was exactly what Jake had been hoping for. "They're separating," Ryan Brooks reported. "The formation is falling apart?" "Perfect," Jake said. "Now we spring the real trap. All ships implement Plan Charlie." The 3 human ships suddenly stopped running and regrouped near a cluster of large asteroids. But they weren't alone. Captain Foster's support ship Endeavor had been busy during the pursuit, deploying hundreds of small autonomous drones throughout the asteroid field. These drones were too small to do much damage by themselves, but they didn't need to. Instead, they swarmed around the scattered Zephyrian ships, confusing their sensors and disrupting their weapons targeting. "What are these things?" demanded a Zephyrian captain as his ship was surrounded by buzzing mechanical insects. "Distractions," Jake replied. "While you're trying to swat them, you're not paying attention to the real threat." The real threat was the asteroids themselves. Using precise calculations and carefully placed explosive charges, the humans began to alter the paths of the largest rocks. Asteroids that had been floating harmlessly suddenly became guided missiles, heading directly for the Zephyrian ships. Incoming asteroids. Zephyrian crews shouted in panic. Multiple collisions predicted. The alien ships were powerful enough to destroy the asteroids with their weapons, but they had to stop attacking the humans to defend themselves. This gave the human fleet the opening they had been waiting for. All ships' final attack pattern. Jake ordered, target their engines and weapon systems only. We're not trying to destroy them. The 3 human ships coordinated their attack perfectly. While the Zephyrians were busy dealing with asteroids and drone swarms, the humans struck at precisely the right moments to disable their opponents without killing them. Captain Parker used the Discovery's advanced sensors to find weak points in Zephyrian shields. Captain Foster's Endeavour deployed specialized nanobots that could disable alien systems without causing explosions. And Jake's Defiance provided cover and coordinated the entire operation. One by one, the Zephyrian warships found themselves unable to fight back. Their weapons were offline, their engines were disabled, and their shields were down. They were not destroyed, but they were completely helpless. Impossible, Deck Volume whispered as his own flagship lost power. How did you defeat an entire battle? Fleet with only 3 ships? Teamwork, Jake replied simply. We didn't try to be stronger than you. We worked together to be smarter than you. The battle was over and humanity had won. But Jake knew that the real test was still to come. Now, they had to prove that humans could be merciful in victory as well as clever in battle. War Commander Deck Volume sat in the disabled command center of his flagship, staring at the dark screens around him. His entire fleet was powerless, floating helplessly in the asteroid field. In over 40 years of military service, he had never experienced defeat. The feeling was strange and uncomfortable. Sir, one of his officers said quietly, the humans are sending a message. Deck Volume straightened in his chair. He expected the humans to demand his surrender or to threaten him with destruction. That was what victorious enemies always did. Put it through. Captain Jake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. His expression was serious but not angry. War Commander Deck Volume, this is Captain Morrison. Are there any injuries among your crews? The question surprised Deck Volume. What? Are any of your people hurt? Jake repeated patiently. We're prepared to offer medical assistance if needed. Deck Volume looked around his bridge. Several of his officers had minor injuries from when the ship lost power and artificial gravity failed briefly. Nothing serious, but they did need medical attention. Why would you help us? We are your defeated enemies. Because that's what civilized people do, Jake replied. We'll be sending medical teams to each of your ships. They're here to help. Not to harm? Before Deck Volume could respond, the communication ended. Within minutes, small human shuttles were approaching each disabled Zephyrian vessel. The war commander watched through his observation windows as human medical personnel boarded. His ship. Dr. Kate Williams was among the first to enter the Zephyrian flagship. She carried a medical bag and moved with the calm confidence of someone who had treated injuries many times before. When she saw Deck Volume, she nodded respectfully. War Commander, I'm Dr. Williams. I'm here to check on your wounded crew members. You are treating us as if we were your own people, Deck Volume said, still confused by this behavior. Injured people are injured people, Kate replied as she began examining a Zephyrian officer who had been hurt during the battle. It doesn't matter which side they were fighting on. Deck Volume watched as the human doctor worked quickly and efficiently to treat his officer's wounds. Her movements were gentle and professional, showing no fear or hatred toward her former enemies. This was not how conquering armies were supposed to behave. Why? He asked finally. Kate looked up from her patient. Why what? Why are you helping us? We came here to enslave your people or destroy them. We would have shown you no mercy if we had won. Kate finished bandaging the injured Zephyrian and moved to check on another crew member. Maybe that's the difference between us. We don't believe that winning a battle means we have to become cruel. Over the next several hours, human repair teams worked alongside medical personnel to restore basic life support systems to all the Zephyrian ships. They didn't repair the weapons or engines, but they made sure that everyone had air to breathe, water to drink, and heat to stay warm. Captain Morrison finally requested a formal meeting with Deck Volume aboard the USS Defiance. The war commander expected to be treated as a prisoner, but instead he was greeted with courtesy and respect. Jake met him at the airlock personally. "War commander," Jake said with a formal nod. "Thank you for coming. I hope your crew is doing well." "They are alive and healthy, thanks to your medical team," Deck Volume replied stiffly. "I am ready to discuss." "The terms of our surrender?" Jake looked surprised. "Surrender?" "I was hoping we could discuss something more interesting than that." They walked to the ship's main conference room, where other human officers were waiting. Deck Volume recognized the fighters and scientists who had defeated his people in the previous challenges. To his surprise, they all stood when he entered the room, showing him the same respect they would give to an honored guest. "Please sit down," Jake said, indicating a chair at the head of the table. "We have a lot to talk about." Deck Volume sat down carefully, still expecting some kind of trick or trap. "You have won all 3 challenges fairly. According to our agreement, the Zephyrian Collective will leave this system and never return." "Actually," Jake said, "I'd like to propose a different arrangement." "What do you mean?" Jake activated a display screen that showed a detailed map of the Kepler 442 system. "This, system is big enough for both of our peoples. Instead of you leaving, what if we shared it?" Big Volume stared at the human captain. "Shared it? You want to live alongside the Zephyrian Collective?" "Why not?" Jake asked. "Your people are skilled warriors and engineers. Our people are good at science and problem solving. Together we could build something amazing." "But we are enemies," Big Volume protested. "We came here to conquer you." "That was before," Jake replied. "Now we know each other better. You've seen that humans aren't weak or cowardly. We've seen that Zephyrians value honor and strength. Those aren't bad qualities." Dr. Elena Rodriguez leaned forward. "War Commander, during our technology demonstration, I noticed that your Stormbringer weapon was incredibly well designed. Your engineers have skills that could be very useful for building colonies and infrastructure." "And your champion, Crystal," added Alex Turner. "He fought with more skill and honor than any opponent I've ever faced. I would be proud to train alongside warriors like him." Deck Volume looked around the table at the human faces. They were all watching him with genuine interest, not the fake politeness of people trying to trick him. These humans actually seemed to believe what they were saying. "You would trust us to live beside you after we threatened your families?" "People change," Jake said simply. "You came here thinking humans were weak prey. Now you know we're not. We came here thinking we might have to fight for this system. Now we're hoping we won't have to." "But what about the rest of the Zephyrian Collective?" "They will not understand this arrangement," Jake smiled. "Then you'll have to help us convince them. You've seen what happens when humans are challenged. Imagine what we could accomplish if we worked together instead of fighting each other." Deck Volume was quiet for a long time, thinking. Everything he had believed about warfare and conquest had been challenged in the past few days. The humans had defeated him, but instead of destroying or enslaving his people, they were offering partnership. "What exactly are you proposing?" "He asked finally. Joint colonization," Jake explained. "Zephyrian and human settlements throughout the system. Shared research projects, combined defense forces, cultural exchange programs. We learn from each other instead of trying to dominate each other. And if problems arise between our peoples, we solve them the same way we solve this conflict," Jake replied. "Through challenges and competitions that test our abilities without causing unnecessary harm," Dr. Williams spoke up. "War Commander, your people have been conquering other species for centuries. How has that worked out for you?" Deck Volume considered the question. "We have many servants, but few allies. Most species obey us out of fear, not loyalty. Wouldn't it be better to have partners who chose to work with you?" Kate asked. The War Commander looked around the table again. These humans had every right to gloat over their victory or to demand harsh terms for his defeat. Instead, they were offering him something he had never experienced before: genuine cooperation between equals. "I will need to discuss this with my officers and with the collective leadership," HFY said slowly. "Of course," Jake agreed. "Take all the time you need. In the meantime, we'll continue providing medical care and basic repairs to your ships." "Why? Are you being so generous to us?" Jake stood up and extended his hand to the Zephyrian commander. "Because we believe that making friends is better than making enemies. And because we think that if you get to know us better, you might feel the same way." HFY looked at the offered hand for several seconds, then reached out and shook it. The human's grip was firm and warm, conveying respect rather than dominance. 3 months later, the first joint human-Zephyrian colony was established on the second planet of the Kepler 442 system. War Commander HFY had become Ambassador HFY, working with human leaders to create something neither species could have built alone. The colony thrived because it combined the best qualities of both peoples. Zephyrian strength and discipline provided security and structure. Human creativity and adaptability solved problems and created new opportunities. Children of both species played together in shared parks while their parents worked side by side on projects that benefited everyone. Back in Zephyrian space, other commanders heard the story of HFY's defeat and the strange alliance that followed. Some called him a traitor, but others became curious about these humans who fought like warriors but fought like diplomats. The Zephyrian collective began to reconsider their approach to other species. Perhaps conquest wasn't the only way to expand their influence. Perhaps cooperation could be more rewarding than domination. And in the Kepler 442 system, humans and Zephyrians continued to learn from each other, proving that the greatest victories sometimes come not from defeating your enemies but from turning them into friends.